I was sitting in my truck outside a warehouse in the industrial district when my phone lit up. The screen showed Elara's name, and I knew before I even opened it that something had shifted. Wedding's still on. I just need a few nights with Mason for closure. You understand, right? I stared at the message for maybe 15 seconds. The sun was hitting the windshield at an angle that made everything look overexposed and unreal. A forklift beeped somewhere behind the loading dock. I could hear my own breathing. I typed back, "Of course." Then I set the phone down and looked at the property assessment forms spread across my passenger seat. Numbers, measurements, load-bearing calculations. Everything quantifiable. Everything making sense in ways that apparently my relationship no longer did. The thing about being a commercial property estimator is that you learn to see structure. You learn to identify what holds things up and what doesn't. You learn to spot the moment when something that looks solid is actually already compromised. You just have to know where to look. I'd been with Elara for 4 years. We'd been engaged for 8 months. The wedding was in 3 weeks. And she'd just texted me that she needed to spend time with her ex-boyfriend for closure. The rational part of my brain noted that she hadn't asked. She'd informed. The other part of my brain was doing something different. It was running calculations, timelines, logistics, the same way I'd analyze a building's foundation before recommending whether a client should buy or walk away. I picked up my phone again and scrolled through my contacts until I found Maribel Quince. She was the coordinator we'd hired to manage the venue and vendors. Professional, efficient, the kind of person who answered emails at 9 p.m. because she took pride in her work. Before I could second-guess myself, I called her. "Rowan?" She sounded surprised. "Is everything okay?" "I need to cancel the wedding," I said. There was a pause, not a long one, but long enough that I could hear her shift mental gears. "Cancel," she repeated. "As in postpone or—" "Cancel, completely. Venue, catering, flowers, everything." Another pause. "Rowan, I have to ask. Does Elara know you're calling me?" "She will," I said. "Soon." Maribel was quiet for a moment, and I could picture her sitting at her desk, probably with a calendar open in front of her and a pen in her hand. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll need you to confirm this in writing. Email will work, and I should tell you that the cancellation fees are going to be significant. The venue requires 60 days' notice, and we're at 21 days. I know. Send me whatever paperwork you need. I'll handle it tonight." "And the deposits?" "Keep them, all of them. Consider it a cancellation fee." She was silent again, and I could tell she was trying to decide whether to say something personal or keep it professional. Professional one. "I'll send you the forms within the hour," she said. "I'm sorry this didn't work out." "Me too," I said, and I meant it. I hung up and sat there for another minute, watching the shadows lengthen across the warehouse parking lot. My phone buzzed. A text from Riley, my oldest friend. "Beer later?" I typed back. "Yeah, I'll explain then." Then I started the truck and drove home. Elara wouldn't be there. She was at her bachelorette party tonight, a weekend trip that had been planned for months. She'd left yesterday morning with her bridesmaids, headed to some resort 2 hours north. She'd kissed me goodbye at the door, told me she loved me, and then sent me that text 6 hours later. The apartment felt different when I walked in. Same furniture, same layout, but the air had changed. Or maybe I had. I made coffee even though it was almost 6 p.m. Then I sat down at the kitchen table with my laptop and started working through Maribel's forms. Name, address, confirmation of cancellation, signature. Everything neat and documented and legally binding. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Elara. "At dinner with the girls. Miss you." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a new tab and pulled up the honeymoon reservation. 2 weeks in Greece. We'd booked it 9 months ago, back when everything seemed straightforward. Back when I thought I understood what we were building. I canceled it. No refund, but I didn't care. I wasn't going to Greece with someone who needed closure, with her ex 3 weeks before our wedding. Then I canceled the photographer, the DJ, the cake. One by one, I dismantled everything we'd spent 8 months planning. Each confirmation email felt like taking out a load-bearing wall. Each cancellation made the structure a little less stable. By midnight, it was done. The wedding that was supposed to happen in 21 days no longer existed. At least not on paper, not legally, not in any way that mattered to anyone except Elara, who still didn't know. I finished my coffee and stared at my phone. No new messages. She was probably still at dinner, laughing with her bridesmaids, thinking everything was fine, thinking I was home missing her, counting down the days until we got married. I wondered how long it would take for her to find out. Maribel had said she'd send the formal notices by Monday. Today was Friday. That gave Elara 2 more days of thinking she was getting married on schedule. 2 more days of closure with Mason. I set my phone face down on the table and went to bed. I didn't sleep much, but that was fine. I had work to do. Riley met me at a bar on Saturday afternoon. It was the kind of place with good burgers and dim lighting and booths that gave you privacy. He was already there when I arrived, nursing a beer and scrolling through his phone. "You look terrible," he said when I sat down. "Thanks." "What happened?" I told him. Not everything, but enough. The text, the cancellations, the way Elara had just assumed I'd be fine with her spending time with her ex right before our wedding. Riley listened without interrupting. When I finished, he took a long drink of his beer and then set it down carefully. "So, what are you going to do?" he asked. "I already did it." "I mean after, when she finds out." "Nothing," I said. "I'm going to do exactly nothing." He studied me for a moment. "You're serious." "Completely. She's going to lose it. Probably. And you're just going to... what? Not answer her calls?" "For a while, yeah." Riley leaned back in his seat. "That's cold, man." "Is it?" I asked. She texted me that she needed to spend time with her ex. She didn't ask. She didn't apologize. She just told me that's what was happening and assumed I'd be okay with it. Fair point. So I'm being exactly as considerate as she was, which is to say, not at all. The waitress came by and I ordered a burger. Riley ordered another beer. We sat in silence for a minute, and I could tell he was trying to decide whether to push back or support me. "You want my help with anything?" he asked finally. "Not yet, but I might." "Just say the word." We spent the rest of the afternoon talking about other things. Work, the playoffs, Riley's ongoing battle with his landlord. Normal stuff. The kind of conversation that made everything feel less insane for a few hours. But when I got home that night, the apartment still felt wrong, like a stage set waiting for the play to start. Everything in its place, but nothing real anymore. I checked my phone. Still nothing from Elara except a photo of her and her bridesmaids at some spa. They were all smiling, glasses of champagne in hand. The caption read, "Best weekend ever." I stared at the photo for a long time. Then I put my phone away and went to bed. Sunday passed quietly. I worked on a property assessment for a client, went to the gym, watched a movie I'd seen before. Normal weekend things. The kind of routine that kept my brain from spinning too hard. Monday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 23 text messages. All from Elara. I didn't read them. Not yet. Instead, I made coffee and opened my laptop. Maribel had emailed me the final documentation. Everything was official now. The wedding was canceled, the vendors notified, the venue released. My phone rang again. Elara. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again, and again, and again. On the 5th call, I finally picked up. "Rowan?" Her voice was shaking. "What the hell did you do?" "I canceled the wedding," I said calmly. "You... what? You can't just..." Maribel called me this morning and said everything's canceled. The venue, the caterers, all of it. She said you authorized it. I did. Why would you... We're getting married in 3 weeks. No, I said. We're not. There was a long silence on her end. I could hear her breathing, fast and uneven. Is this because of my text? She asked finally. Rowan, I told you I just need closure. It doesn't change anything between us. It changed everything, I said. You just didn't realize it. So you're punishing me? By canceling our wedding? I'm not punishing you. I'm making a decision based on new information. You needed closure with Mason. Fine. But I don't need to marry someone who thinks that's acceptable 3 weeks before a wedding. Rowan, please, let's talk about this. We are talking. No, I mean in person. I'm coming home right now. Don't do anything else until we talk. There's nothing left to do, I said. It's already done. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were steady. My pulse was normal. I felt calm in a way that probably should have worried me but didn't. The phone rang again. I turned it off and went to work. The office was quiet when I arrived. Monday mornings were always slow, most people still easing into the week with coffee and small talk. I went straight to my desk and pulled up the Riverside property file. 40,000 square feet of retail space that needed a structural assessment before the owner could list it. Normal work, numbers and measurements and load calculations, things that made sense, except my brain kept circling back to the phone calls I'd ignored, to the way Elara's voice had cracked when she said my name. I forced myself to focus, checked the building plans, marked the inspection points, scheduled a site visit for Wednesday. Routine work that required enough attention to keep the other thoughts at bay. Around 10, my desk phone rang. Internal line. I picked up. Rowan? It was Beth, the office manager. You have someone here to see you. I wasn't expecting anyone. Who? She says her name is Elara. I closed my eyes. Of course she'd come here. Of course she wouldn't wait. Tell her I'm in a meeting, I said. She says it's important. So is my meeting. Beth was quiet for a second. She's pretty upset. I'm aware, but I'm still in a meeting. I hung up before Beth could argue. Through the glass wall of my office, I could see the reception area. Elara was there, talking to Beth with her hands moving in quick, frustrated gestures. She was still wearing the clothes from her bachelorette weekend, casual jeans and a sweater that made her look younger than 29. I turned my chair away from the window and went back to the Riverside file, focused on concrete numbers, column spacing, floor load capacity, egress requirements, things that couldn't lie to me. 10 minutes later, Beth knocked on my door. When I looked up, she had that expression people get when they don't want to be in the middle of something. She's gone, Beth said, but she left you this. She handed me an envelope, thick cardstock, the kind Elara used for important correspondence. My name was written on the front in her careful handwriting. Thanks, I said. Beth hesitated. You okay? Yeah, just dealing with some personal stuff. She nodded and left, closing the door behind her. I set the envelope on my desk and stared at it for a minute. Then I opened my desk drawer and dropped it inside without reading it. The rest of the day passed in a blur of work. I reviewed 3 properties, drafted 2 reports, took a call from a client who wanted to know if a warehouse foundation could handle a mezzanine addition. Normal questions that had straightforward answers. At 5, I packed up and left. The envelope stayed in my drawer. Riley called as I was driving home. How bad was it? She came to my office. And? I didn't see her. He laughed, but it wasn't entirely amused. Man, you're really committed to this. She made her choice. I made mine. Yeah, but she's probably freaking out right now. Probably. And that doesn't bother you? I thought about it. No, it really doesn't. Riley was quiet for a moment. You need anything? Moral support? A witness? Not yet, but I'll let you know. When I got home, I half expected Elara to be waiting outside the apartment. She wasn't. I went inside, changed into gym clothes, and went for a run. 5 miles through the neighborhood, pushing hard enough that my brain couldn't wander. When I got back, I showered, made dinner, and sat down with a book I'd been meaning to read. My phone was still off. I didn't turn it back on. Tuesday morning, I got to the office early. The envelope was still in my desk drawer. I still didn't read it. Instead, I pulled up my email and started sorting through the weekend messages. Routine requests, property inquiries, a few follow-ups from clients, and one from Maribel Quince. The subject line read, "Additional cancellation confirmations." I opened it. She'd attached a spreadsheet listing every vendor we'd hired for the wedding. Each one had a status update: canceled, refund pending, deposit forfeited. It was thorough and organized and exactly what I'd expected. At the bottom, she'd added a personal note. "Rowan, I wanted to let you know that Elara contacted me yesterday. She asked if the cancellations could be reversed. I explained that once the formal notices went out, most vendors consider it final. A few might be willing to rebook if the dates are still available, but you'd be starting from scratch with new deposits and likely higher rates due to the short timeline. Let me know if you want to discuss this further. Otherwise, I'll consider the matter closed." I read it twice. Then I typed back, "Consider it closed. Thank you for handling everything so professionally." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The rest of the week unfolded in careful, deliberate isolation. I went to work, avoided calls, kept my phone off except during business hours. Elara tried texting from different numbers, her friends, her mother, even her brother. I recognized the pattern and ignored them all. By Thursday, the messages started getting angrier, less pleading, more accusatory, calling me immature, cruel, manipulative, telling me I was ruining everything over nothing. I read them once and then deleted them. Friday afternoon, Riley showed up at my apartment with takeout and beer. He didn't ask permission, just walked in like he'd been doing for the past 15 years. "You look better," he said, setting the food on the counter. "I feel better." "Good, because we need to talk." I grabbed plates from the cabinet. About? About what happens next. Nothing happens next. That's the point. Riley opened a beer and handed it to me. Elara's not going to just disappear. She's going to keep pushing. Let her. And if she shows up here, I won't answer the door. And if she makes a scene, then I'll call building security. Riley studied me while he ate. "You've really thought this through." "I've had time." "And you don't feel bad at all?" I considered the question. I feel bad that it came to this. But I don't feel bad about my decision. She made her choice before I made mine. Fair enough. We ate in comfortable silence. Halfway through the meal, Riley said, "You know Mason's probably freaking out too, right?" I hadn't thought about that. Why would he care? Because Elara's probably leaning on him now, and guys like Mason don't handle pressure well. "How do you know what kind of guy he is?" Riley shrugged. "I looked him up. Works in finance, drives a BMW, posts gym photos on social media, classic overconfident type, the kind of guy who thinks he's smarter than he is." "You Facebook stalked him?" "Someone had to." I almost smiled. "Find anything interesting?" "He's been posting a lot lately. Motivational quotes, vacation photos, that kind of thing. But nothing about Elara. Which means he's either being discreet or he doesn't want anyone knowing. Probably both." Riley finished his beer and grabbed another. "So what's the plan? Just wait it out until she gives up?" "Something like that." "And if she doesn't give up?" I looked at him. "Then I'll deal with it. But on my terms, not hers." He nodded slowly. "All right. Just remember I'm around if you need backup." "I will." After Riley left, I sat on the couch and thought about Mason Ives. About the kind of person who would agree to spend time with someone else's fiancée 3 weeks before her wedding. About what that said about his judgment and his character. And about what happened to people like that when their carefully maintained image started to crack. I didn't have a plan yet. Not exactly. but I was starting to see the outline of one. Saturday morning, I turned my phone back on. 42 new messages. I scrolled through them without reading most of them. Elara's texts had shifted from angry to desperate to confused. Her friends had tried being supportive, then confrontational, then sympathetic. Her mother had sent one message asking me to call her. I didn't. Instead, I pulled up Mason's social media profiles. Riley was right. He posted constantly. Gym selfies, motivational quotes, photos from expensive restaurants. The kind of carefully curated life that was designed to impress people. His most recent post was from yesterday, a photo of a cocktail with a sunset in the background. The caption read, "Sometimes you just need to take a break and enjoy the view." I wondered if Elara had been there when he took it. Then I noticed something in the background of the photo, a distinctive building with angular architecture and dark glass. I recognized it immediately, a high-end resort about an hour south of the city. I'd done a property assessment there 2 years ago when the owners were considering an expansion. I knew the layout, I knew the access points, I knew exactly how their reservation system worked because I'd spent a week there reviewing structural plans and talking to the management. And I knew that Mason Ives had just made a mistake by posting a photo that gave away his location. I saved the image and closed the app. Then I opened my calendar and looked at the upcoming week. I had 3 site visits scheduled, but they were flexible. Nothing that couldn't be moved if I needed to. Riley had asked if I had a plan. I hadn't, not then. But I was starting to now. Sunday morning I drove south. The resort was called Vista Heights, which was pretentious but accurate. It sat on a hillside overlooking the valley, all glass and steel and overpriced minimalism. I'd spent a week there 2 years ago measuring load-bearing walls and reviewing foundation specs. I still had the access codes I'd been given for service areas. I wasn't sure they'd still work, but that was fine. I just needed to see the layout again. Refresh my memory. The parking lot was half full when I arrived. I parked near the back and sat in my truck for a minute, watching guests come and go. Couples mostly, a few families, everyone looking relaxed and vaguely wealthy. Mason's BMW was parked near the main entrance. Glossy black, personalized plates. The kind of car that announced its owner's priorities. I got out and walked toward the building, but not through the main entrance. Instead, I headed around the side, toward the service corridors I remembered. The first door was locked, but the second one, hidden behind a landscaped screen, opened when I punched in the old access code. Still active. Good to know. I didn't go inside, just confirmed the access and then walked back to my truck. I'd seen what I needed to see. Now, I just had to wait. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Elara's mother. I don't know what happened between you two, but she's devastated. Whatever you're upset about, please talk to her. She loves you." I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I deleted it and put the phone away. 40 minutes later, Mason emerged from the main entrance. He was alone, dressed in designer casual, expensive jeans and a fitted jacket. He walked to his BMW with the kind of confidence that suggested he'd never had to question whether people would do what he wanted. I watched him drive away. Then I started my truck and followed. He headed north, back toward the city. I kept 3 cars between us, staying far enough back that it wouldn't be obvious. He drove like someone who thought the speed limit was a suggestion, aggressive lane changes, barely pausing at yellow lights. We were 20 minutes into the drive when my phone rang. Riley. "Where are you?" he asked. "Driving." "That's vague." "I'm following Mason." Riley was quiet for a second. "Why?" "Because I want to know where he's going." "And then what?" "Then I'll figure out the next step." "Man, I'm all for supporting you through this, but you're starting to sound a little..." "A little what?" "Intense." "Maybe," I said. "But I'm not doing anything wrong, I'm just driving." "Yeah, but you're driving behind someone. That's kind of the definition of following." "He doesn't know I'm here." Riley sighed. "Just be careful, okay? Don't do anything that's going to get you in trouble." "I won't." He hung up, and I refocused on Mason's BMW. He was getting off the highway now, heading into a neighborhood I recognized. Expensive houses, gated communities, tree-lined streets that screamed money. He pulled into the driveway of a modern two-story with a three-car garage. I drove past without slowing, memorizing the address. Then I circled the block and parked a few houses down where I could see his place without being obvious. Mason went inside. A few minutes later, lights came on in the front windows. I waited, watching. 20 minutes passed, then the garage door opened and Mason came back out, this time in workout clothes. He jogged down the driveway and headed south, probably toward a park or trail. I got out of my truck and walked toward his house. Didn't go inside, didn't touch anything. Just walked the perimeter like I was assessing the property, checking the foundation, the drainage, the structural elements. Anyone watching would think I was a contractor or inspector doing a routine evaluation. The house was nice. Expensive landscaping, professional paint job, security cameras at each corner. The kind of place that cost twice what I made in a year. I took a few photos with my phone, not for any specific reason yet, just documentation. Then I walked back to my truck and waited for Mason to return from his run. He came back 40 minutes later, breathing hard and checking his phone. He went inside without noticing me, and the garage door closed behind him. I sat there for another hour, watching. Nothing happened. No visitors, no movement. Just a guy in an expensive house living his expensive life. The sun was starting to set when I noticed something. A car pulled up across the street, a gray sedan, unremarkable except for the fact that it parked with a clear view of Mason's house. The driver didn't get out. Just sat there, engine running, watching the same house I was watching. I couldn't see who was inside from this angle, but the way they'd positioned themselves, the deliberate choice of location, it felt intentional, like I wasn't the only one interested in Mason Ives today. My phone buzzed, a text from Riley. "You still following him?" I typed back, "No, watching his house, and I think someone else is too." "What do you mean?" "There's another car parked with eyes on his place. Been here about 10 minutes. Maybe it's just a neighbor." Maybe. But it didn't feel like a neighbor. It felt like something else, something more deliberate. The gray sedan stayed for another 20 minutes, then pulled away slowly. I caught a glimpse of the driver as they passed under a streetlight. A woman, maybe mid-30s, dark hair pulled back. She didn't look my way. After she left, I sat there for another 30 minutes thinking. Mason had more attention on him than just mine. Whether he knew it or not, someone else was watching. Someone else was paying attention to his movements. That complicated things. Or maybe it simplified them. I wasn't sure yet. Finally, I started the truck and drove home. When I got back to my apartment, Elara was sitting on the floor outside my door. She looked terrible. Red eyes, messy hair, clothes that didn't match, like she hadn't slept properly in days. "I've been waiting for 3 hours," she said when she saw me. I stopped a few feet away. "You should go home. This is my home, or it was supposed to be." "Not anymore." She stood up, unsteady on her feet. "Rowan, please. Can we just talk? Actually talk, not through a closed door or ignored messages?" "There's nothing to talk about." "Yes, there is. You canceled our wedding over a text message. Don't I at least deserve an explanation?" "You got one. You told me you needed closure with Mason. I decided I needed closure with you. That's all there is to it." "But that's—" She stopped, rubbing her face with both hands. "That's not fair." "Fair?" I felt something cold and sharp move through me. "You sent me a text saying you were going to spend time with your ex 3 weeks before our wedding. You didn't ask. You didn't apologize. You just assumed I'd be okay with it. And you think I'm the one being unfair?" "I thought you'd understand. Mason and I have history. I don't care about your history. I care that you prioritized him over our wedding, over us." Elara's face crumpled. "I made a mistake, okay? I shouldn't have done it. But you can't just throw away 4 years over one mistake." "I'm not throwing anything away. You already did that when you sent that text." She took a step toward me. Rowan, I love you. I want to marry you. Can't we fix this? No. Why not? Because I don't trust you anymore, and I don't want to marry someone I don't trust. She stared at me, and I could see her trying to process what I'd said, trying to find an angle or argument that would change my mind. Is this about revenge? She asked, finally. Are you trying to hurt me back? No. This is about making a decision. You made yours. I made mine. And that's it? You're just done? Yeah, I'm done. She started crying then, full sobs that shook her whole body. I stood there and watched, feeling nothing, or maybe feeling something, but too far beneath the surface to identify. When she finally looked up, her eyes were desperate. What about Mason? Are you going to do something to him? Why would I do anything to him? Because you're angry, and you're not the kind of person who just lets things go. She was right about that, but I didn't tell her so. Mason's not my problem, I said. He's yours. Elara opened her mouth like she wanted to say something else, but then closed it. She picked up her purse from the floor and wiped her face with her sleeve. I'm sorry, she whispered, for all of it. Then she walked past me toward the stairs, moving like someone who'd just lost something they couldn't get back. I unlocked my door and went inside. Through the window, I watched her get into her car and sit there for a long time before finally driving away. My phone buzzed, a text from Riley. You good? I typed back, yeah, just had a conversation I should have had days ago. How'd she take it? Not well, but it's done now. Need anything? Not tonight, but maybe tomorrow. I set the phone down and stood by the window, looking out at the city lights, thinking about Mason in his expensive house, about the way he'd posted that photo without thinking about who might see it, about the security cameras I'd noticed on his property and whether they were as good as they looked, and about that gray sedan, about whoever had been watching his house with the same careful attention I'd been giving it. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was just calculating, running through possibilities the same way I'd run load calculations on a building, finding the weak points, the places where pressure could be applied. Tomorrow, I'd call Riley and tell him I needed his help with something simple and legal that would put me in the right place at the right time. But tonight, I just stood at the window and planned. Riley showed up Tuesday morning with coffee and a questioning look. You said you needed help with something. I need you to drive me somewhere Thursday afternoon and then pick me up a few hours later. That's it? That's it. He studied me over his coffee. Where are we going? Mason's place. Why? Because I want to have a conversation with him, and I don't want my truck there while I do it. Riley set his coffee down. Define conversation. Exactly what it sounds like. No physical contact, no threats, nothing that would get either of us in trouble. Just talking. Just talking, Riley repeated. At his house, where you're not invited. He'll invite me in once I explain why I'm there. And why are you there? To tell him exactly what he helped destroy, and to make sure he understands that actions have consequences. Riley was quiet for a long moment. You really think he's going to let you in? Yeah. Because guys like Mason can't resist the opportunity to feel superior, and I'm going to give him that chance right before I take it away. That's cold. That's accurate. Wednesday afternoon, I spent 2 hours reviewing everything I knew about Mason Ives, his job in finance, his social media presence, the timeline of his posts. I cross-referenced property records with his mortgage information, all public data, nothing illegal. Riley was right about him being overextended. The house payment alone had to be crushing, especially with the recent layoffs at his company. I also spent time thinking about that gray sedan, about who might be watching Mason, and why. It nagged at me, that detail. An unknown variable in what should have been a straightforward equation. Around 5 p.m. my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Rowan Kestrel? A woman's voice, professional and neutral. Speaking. My name is Jennifer Park. I'm a private investigator, and I believe we have a mutual interest in Mason Ives. I went very still. How did you get my number? I saw you watching his house on Sunday, ran your plates. Once I knew who you were, it wasn't hard to piece together why you'd be interested in him. And why are you interested? Client confidentiality prevents me from sharing details, but I wanted to reach out because I don't want us stepping on each other's toes. Whatever you're planning, I need to make sure it doesn't interfere with my work. I'm not planning anything illegal. I didn't say you were. But you followed him from Vista Heights, you surveilled his property, and you've been researching his financial situation. That's more than casual interest. I thought about hanging up, but something made me ask, what's your angle on him? Like I said, client confidentiality. But I will tell you this. If you're planning to confront him directly, you should know he's not as stable as he appears. The financial pressure is real, and he's made some questionable decisions recently that suggest poor judgment under stress. Such as getting involved with someone else's fiancée 3 weeks before her wedding. So she knew about Elara, which meant her client probably did too. Who hired you? I asked. Can't tell you that, but I can tell you that whatever you're planning for Thursday, I won't interfere as long as it stays legal and doesn't blow back on my investigation. How do you know about Thursday? I don't, but your friend Riley made a call to rearrange a work appointment for that day. I'm good at connecting dots. I almost smiled. You're thorough. It's my job. Look, I'm not your enemy here. I'm just trying to do my work without complications. You do what you need to do. I'll stay out of your way. But if this turns into something that involves law enforcement, we never had this conversation. Understood. She hung up before I could say anything else. I sat there for a minute, processing. Someone else was investigating Mason, someone with resources and motivation. That changed the landscape, but it didn't change my plan. If anything, it made me more careful about how I approached Thursday. Thursday came. Riley picked me up at 3 p.m., and we drove to Mason's neighborhood in silence. When we got there, I had him parked 2 blocks away. You sure about this? Riley asked. Completely. And you don't want me to come with you? No. This is something I need to do alone. He nodded slowly. Text me when you're ready to leave. I'll be here. I got out and walked to Mason's house. The security cameras tracked my approach, but I didn't care. I wasn't doing anything wrong. Just visiting. I rang the doorbell. It took a minute, but then Mason opened the door. He was wearing a polo shirt and khakis, like he'd just gotten home from work. When he saw me, his expression shifted from neutral to wary. Can I help you? He asked. You're Mason Ives, right? Yeah. Who are you? I'm Rowan Kestrel. I think we need to talk about Elara. His face changed. Not much, but enough. A flicker of something. Guilt, maybe, or just discomfort at being confronted. Look, man, he said. I don't know what she told you, but she didn't tell me anything. She didn't have to. She sent me a text 3 weeks before our wedding saying she needed to spend time with you for closure. That told me everything I needed to know. Mason shifted his weight. That's between you and her. It was, until you decided to be part of it. He crossed his arms. I didn't make her do anything. She came to me. Did she tell you we were getting married in 3 weeks? Yeah. And you thought that was fine? He shrugged. People make their own choices. You're right. They do. And you made yours. So did I. What's that supposed to mean? It means I canceled the wedding, all of it. Venue, caterers, honeymoon, everything. The minute she sent me that text, I started dismantling our entire future. And she didn't find out until it was too late to fix it. Mason's expression shifted again. Less wary, more interested. You canceled your own wedding? I canceled our wedding. It stopped being mine the second she decided you were more important. He actually smiled. Just a small one, but I saw it. That's pretty harsh. No, that's proportional. So why are you here? You want me to apologize? No, I want you to understand something. What? I looked past him into his house. Nice furniture, expensive art on the walls, everything carefully arranged to project success. You live in a really nice place, I said. Must have cost a lot. It did. How'd you afford it? Finance job. His smile faded. That's none of your business. You're right. It's not. But I'm guessing you worked pretty hard to get here. Built a career, made the right connections, maintained a certain image. So? So that's the thing about images. They're fragile. One crack and the whole thing starts to fall apart. Mason's jaw tightened. Are you threatening me? No. I'm just making an observation. You've built something here. A life, a reputation. And that's great. But it's based on people seeing you a certain way. And if that changes, if people start seeing you differently, then everything else changes too. Get to the point. The point, I said, is that Elara made a choice, and you helped her make it, and now you're both going to live with the consequences. Hers is that she doesn't get to marry me. Yours is that you don't get to walk away from this without understanding what you participated in. I didn't participate in anything. She made her choice, like you said. You're right. She did. But you enabled it. You knew she was getting married and you spent time with her anyway. So now I'm here to make sure you know exactly what that cost. Mason stepped back slightly. You need to leave. I'm going to. But first, I want you to think about something. You live in a nice house in a nice neighborhood. You drive an expensive car. You post photos of your perfect life on social media. All of that is built on people thinking you're a certain kind of person. And people talk, especially in neighborhoods like this. Are you going to spread rumors about me? Is that what this is? I don't need to spread anything. I just need to be visible, walking around, talking to neighbors, asking questions about property values and whether anyone knows the history of this place. Contractors do that all the time. No one thinks twice about it. Except you're not really asking about property values. Aren't I? I'm a property estimator. That's literally my job. If I happen to mention that I'm doing research on a specific address because someone I know had a bad experience with the person who lives there, well, that's just being thorough. Mason's face had gone pale. That's slander. No. Slander is making false statements. I'm not going to lie about anything. I'm just going to make sure people know the truth. That you spent time with someone else's fiancée 3 weeks before her wedding. That's not slander. That's just fact. You can't do that. Actually, I can. There's no law against having conversations with people. There's no law against being honest about my experiences. And there's definitely no law against making sure that the person who helped ruin my engagement understands that actions have consequences. Mason stared at me, and I could see him running calculations, trying to figure out if I was serious, if I had the time or energy to follow through, if this was worth calling my bluff. I wasn't bluffing. What do you want? He asked finally. I want you to understand that you're not insulated, that the life you've built isn't as secure as you think it is, and that the next time someone asks you to participate in something that's going to hurt someone else, you think twice. That's it? That's it. He looked at me for another long moment. Then he stepped back and started to close the door. But before it shut completely, I said, one more thing. There's a private investigator watching you. Gray sedan, woman with dark hair. She was here on Sunday. I don't know who hired her or what they're looking for, but you should probably know that I'm not the only one paying attention. Mason's face went completely white. What? Just thought you should know. Have a good evening. I turned and walked back toward where Riley was parked. My phone buzzed halfway there, a text from an unknown number. Leave me alone or I'm calling the police. I didn't respond, just put the phone away and kept walking. When I reached Riley's car, he looked up from his phone. How'd it go? Exactly how I expected. Which means, he's scared, and he should be. Riley pulled away from the curb. You didn't do anything illegal, right? Not even close. I just had a conversation. A conversation that scared him. Sometimes the truth does that. We drove in silence for a few minutes. Then Riley said, You know this isn't over, right? He's going to tell Elara. I know. And she's going to freak out. Probably. And you're okay with that? Yeah, I said. I really am. My phone rang an hour later. Elara. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. And again. On the fourth try, I answered. Did you go to Mason's house? She asked immediately. Yes. Why would you do that? Because I wanted him to understand what he helped you do to us. Rowan, you can't just show up at people's houses and threaten them. I didn't threaten him. I had a conversation. He said you threatened to ruin his reputation. I told him the truth. That's not a threat. You need to stay away from him, from both of us. I'm not going near you. You made that unnecessary when you sent me that text. What's that supposed to mean? It means you ended things between us. You just didn't realize it at the time, so I helped you understand. And then I made sure Mason understood too. This is insane. You're acting crazy. No, I'm acting rationally. There's a difference. She was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was shaking. What do you want from me? Nothing. I don't want anything from you. That's the whole point. Then why are you doing this? Because you needed to understand that actions have consequences. And so did Mason. Now you both do. And that's it? You're just done? Yeah, I'm done. I hung up before she could respond. Riley called 30 seconds later. You okay? I'm good. She's going to keep calling. Let her. I'm turning my phone off for the night. You want company? No, I'm fine, really. He didn't sound convinced, but he didn't push. All right. Call me if you need anything. I promised I would, then hung up and turned my phone off. The apartment was quiet. I made dinner, watched part of a movie, went to bed early. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night without waking up. Friday morning, I woke up to silence. No phone calls because my phone was still off. No texts, no voicemails, no messages demanding explanations. Just quiet. I made coffee and sat by the window, watching the city wake up. Somewhere out there, Elara was probably trying to figure out what to do next. Mason was probably wondering if I was serious about making sure people knew what he'd done, and I was just sitting here, drinking coffee, feeling nothing. Or maybe not nothing. Maybe something small and cold and satisfied. My phone stayed off until noon. When I finally turned it back on, there were 37 new messages. I scrolled through them without reading most of them. Elara, her mother, Mason from a number he probably thought I didn't have. A few from numbers I didn't recognize at all. Only one message caught my attention, from Maribel Quince. Rowan, I wanted to let you know that Elara contacted me again yesterday. She asked if there was any way to reverse the cancellations. I explained that it's not possible at this point. Most vendors have already filled your dates, and the ones that haven't would require new deposits and contracts at higher rates due to the timeline. She seemed very upset. I know this is difficult, but I wanted you to be aware in case she tries to go around me directly. Let me know if you need anything. I read it twice. Then I typed back, Thank you for keeping me informed. I appreciate your professionalism through all of this. Then I deleted everything else without reading it and put my phone away. Saturday afternoon, Riley called. You still alive? Unfortunately for some people, yes. He laughed. Want to grab lunch? Sure. Same place as last time? Works for me. We met at the burger place an hour later. Riley was already in a booth when I arrived, scrolling through his phone with a beer in front of him. You look better, he said when I sat down. I feel better. Good, because I have news. What kind of news? The interesting kind. He set his phone down. So, I may have done some more research on Mason. Define research. I checked his social media again, and his company profile, and some public records. And it turns out he's not doing as well as he pretends. His company had layoffs 3 months ago. He posted about it on LinkedIn, tried to frame it as a restructuring opportunity, but reading between the lines, it's pretty clear they cut a bunch of positions and he was lucky to keep his. Okay. And his house? The one you visited? He bought it 18 months ago at the peak of the market, right before interest rates started climbing. His mortgage payment has to be brutal. How do you know that? Public records, property sales are all documented. I just looked up the address and did some math. I thought about that. So, he's overextended. Very. And probably stressed about it, which might explain why he was willing to mess around with someone else's fiancée. Sometimes people make bad decisions when they're feeling unstable. That's generous of you. I'm not being generous. I'm being accurate. And the point is, he's more vulnerable than he looks, which means your visit probably hit harder than you realized. Good. Riley picked at the label on his beer bottle. So what now? Now nothing. I made my point. He knows I know about his situation, that's enough. You sure? Yeah. I'm not trying to ruin his life. I just wanted him to understand that he's not untouchable. And Elara? What about her? She's still calling you. I know. You going to answer eventually? No. Riley nodded slowly. You're really done with her. I was done the second she sent that text. Everything since then has just been follow-through. The waitress came by and took our orders. After she left, Riley leaned back in the booth and studied me. You know what's weird? He said. What? You seem happier now than you did 2 months ago. I thought about that. Maybe I am. That's messed up. Is it? I was engaged to someone who didn't respect me enough to put our relationship first. Now I'm not. How is that messed up? When you put it that way, I guess it's not. We ate lunch and talked about other things. Work, sports, Riley's ongoing battle with his landlord about a leak in his bathroom. Normal conversation that had nothing to do with canceled weddings or confrontations with people I used to trust. When we finished, Riley paid, despite my protests. Consider it a celebration, he said. Of what? Of you not being married to someone who would have made you miserable. I couldn't argue with that. Sunday morning I went for a run, 8 miles through the city, pushing hard enough that my brain couldn't wander. When I got back, I showered and made breakfast. Then I sat down with my laptop and started reviewing the Riverside property file again. I had a site inspection scheduled for Monday, and I wanted to be prepared. My phone rang around 11. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Rowan? It was Elara. Different phone, same desperate edge to her voice. How did you get this number? I borrowed my friend's phone. Will you please just listen to me? I'm listening. I need you to understand something. I made a mistake. A huge one. I know that now. But what you did, canceling everything, going to Mason's house, refusing to talk to me, that's cruel. You're punishing me for one bad decision. I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting myself from someone who proved they don't value our relationship the way I do. But we can fix this. If you'd just give me a chance. No. Why not? Because I don't want to fix it. Because the person I thought I was marrying wouldn't have sent me that text in the first place. And I don't want to marry the person you actually are. That's not fair. Maybe not. But it's honest. She was crying now. I could hear it in her voice, the way it shook and broke on certain words. What about everything we built together? 4 years, Rowan. Doesn't that mean anything? It did, until you threw it away for a few nights with your ex. I didn't throw anything away. Yes, you did. You just didn't realize it until I held up a mirror. The line went quiet, except for her breathing. Then she said, "I hate you." "That's fair. I hope you regret this." "I won't." She hung up. I set the phone down and went back to the property file. Monday's site inspection went smoothly. The building was solid, no major structural issues, just some minor drainage concerns that could be fixed easily. I spent 4 hours measuring, photographing, taking notes. Normal work that required focus and attention. When I got back to the office, there was a package waiting on my desk. No return address, just my name written in handwriting I didn't recognize. I opened it carefully. Inside was the engagement ring I'd given Elara 18 months ago. No note, no explanation, just the ring in its original box. I looked at it for a long moment. Then I put it in my desk drawer and went back to work. That evening, Riley called. "You hear about Mason?" "No, what about him?" "He deleted all his social media accounts, every single one, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of it. Just gone." I thought about that. "When?" "Sometime today. I was checking to see if he'd posted anything new and everything was just gone." "Interesting. You think he's running scared?" "I think he's realizing that maintaining his image isn't worth the stress, which is probably healthy for him. Or he's worried you're going to keep showing up." "I'm not. I made my point." "Does he know that?" "He should. I told him I just wanted him to understand consequences. That's it." Riley was quiet for a second. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "You won. Like, completely. Elara lost the wedding, Mason lost his peace of mind, and you just moved on. I didn't win anything. I just refused to lose on someone else's terms." "That sounds like the same thing." "Maybe it is." Tuesday morning, Maribel Quince sent me a final email. The subject line read, "Cancellation complete." The message was brief. "Rowan, all vendors have been notified and all final paperwork has been processed. The wedding scheduled for October 15th is officially canceled. I'm closing this file on my end. Thank you for trusting me with this process, even under difficult circumstances. I hope you're doing well." I read it twice. Then I replied, "Thank you for everything, Maribel. You made a hard situation easier, and I appreciate that." Then I closed my laptop and looked around my apartment. Same furniture, same layout, same everything. But it felt different now. Lighter somehow. Like I'd been carrying something heavy and finally set it down. My phone buzzed. A text from Riley. "Drinks tonight?" I typed back, "Yeah, I'll buy." I stood up and walked to the window. The city stretched out below me, all concrete and glass and movement. Somewhere out there, Elara was probably still trying to make sense of what happened. Mason was probably still worrying about whether I'd show up again. And I was just here, living my life, moving forward. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt finished. Like I'd closed a door on something that needed to be closed. And now I could finally focus on what came next. Whatever that was, it would be on my terms, not someone else's. And that was enough.